Welcome to the Newsa-Cast YouTube channel. These Red Smith Banquet throwbacks are exclusive interviews of sports legends, powerful media personalities, and influential coaches. You won't find these anywhere else. Subscribe below and enjoy. Alrighty, folks, welcome to another Red Smith Banquet throwback. As you know, we have a lot of great ones in our catalog at the Newsa-Cast YouTube channel. But of all the people to come to Red Smith in 1993, we had a really, really special guest receive the Nice Guy Award. It literally should be named after him for what he did. But his name is Steve Palermo. He was a major league umpire. One of the best, really, major league umpire. He was always ranked really high, had a great personality. If you think of Gene Sarator as an NBA or as a college official, that was Steve Palermo. They had the same look. They're Italian. You know, that's them. They're great officials. But he came in 1993, Tosh, and he had a pretty incredible story. I'm sure a lot of folks aren't aware of it.
Yeah. In 1991, he was having a late night dinner in Dallas, and two servers who had just left were mugged, and he chased after the attackers, and he was shot, leaving him paralyzed from the waist down. And he eventually was able to walk again with the help of a cane, and continue his recovery. But that obviously ended his umpiring career.
And Steve dives into all of that. It's not just that, though. It's some epic baseball stories with managers like Lou Piniella, Billy Martin, Earl Weaver. It's all there. So please like and subscribe and enjoy Steve Palermo. It's an incredible story.
Okay, now hear this.
For 14 seasons, Palermo was known as one of the best umpires in the majors for calling balls and strikes behind the plate. The bigger the game, the more he liked it. And he was a stickler for keeping order on the field.
You are the keeper of the game. You have to maintain the control out on the baseball field. You've got to believe in your convictions, and they've got to believe in you.
How about that, huh? Okay. At this time, Mr. Sig Wysocki of the Miller Brewing Company will present the award to Mr. Palermo.
Thank you, Robert. Ladies and gentlemen, it takes a special breed to be a major league umpire. Only 1 out of every 200 applicants will ever work a major league game. And when you consider the travel fatigue, the job stress, the name calling, it's amazing that there are so many people who want the job in the first place. As an umpire, there is no room for hesitation on the baseball diamond. You make the call and you stand by it, because somebody's got to make that call. Steve Palermo is a man accustomed to making the right call, both on and off the diamond. His story is one of determination, faith, and remarkable physical and mental strength. Steve joined the American League umpiring staff in 1977 and quickly established himself as one of the league's finest umps. He was one of the elite assigned to the famous one-game playoff between the New York Yankees and Boston Red Sox that decided the 1978 Eastern Division champion. In fact, his father, a lifelong Red Sox fan, has never forgiven Steve for calling Bucky Dent's climatic home run fair. Steve went on to work the 1983 World Series, 4 American League Championship Series, and the 1986 All-Star Game in Houston, Texas. Steve is considered one of the finest ball and strike callers in the modern era. In 1991, Sporting News ranked him the best overall umpire in the American League. But in life, as in baseball, events take place quickly and often unexpectedly. On a quiet night in Dallas 2 years ago, Steve and a group of friends answered cries for help from 2 women being assaulted in a parking lot. There was no time for deliberation. Steve and his friends made a call, and they stuck to it. There was a mile-long foot chase, a brief encounter, then gunshots. When police arrived, they found Steve seriously wounded. A bullet had grazed his kidney and spinal column, and after all the MRIs, CAT scans, and X-rays, the prognosis was grim. He was told he would never walk again. For the past year and a half, Steve has dedicated his life to proving those experts wrong. 3 months after he was shot, Steve was on national television throwing out the first pitch of the 1991 World Series. You've all seen his remarkable progress. Gone is the wheelchair, the leg braces, even the forearm crutches that once held him up. What you haven't seen is the months of torturous rehabilitation that have made these results possible. Painful physical therapy has become Steve's new full-time job, a job not marked by days and months, but rather by inches. Despite his own setbacks, Steve Palermo has never been one to think only of himself. Before his injury, he was actively involved in Special Olympics and the Queen Louise Home for Abused and Abandoned Children. While undergoing his own grueling physical therapy, 6.5 hours a day, 6 days a week, Steve and his wife Debbie discovered a new cause: children with spinal and head injuries. Together, the Palermos organized a benefit auction that has raised over $125,000 for children without the medical insurance needed to pay for their rehabilitation. This money established what is now known as the Steve Palermo Foundation for Spinal Cord Injuries. For now, Steve has settled into a strict routine at the Mid-American Rehabilitation Center in Kansas City. The future still motivates Steve. He dreams of returning to the diamond as a major league umpire. And after proving doctors and experts wrong time and time again, who's to say that dream won't someday become a reality? After all, Steve is an umpire, and we all know that umpires always have the last word. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Palermo is more than a nice guy. He is an inspiration to all of us. Please join me in welcoming our 1993 Miller Nice Guy Award winner, Mr. Steve Palermo.
Thank you.
Bunch of crazy sports fans, huh, buddy?
Yeah, they are. Thank you. Jerry Kramer just hollered. There's some kind of crazy sports fans, aren't they? You don't make it easy on somebody to get up here and accept an award, do you? Thank you for the introduction, Sig. Sitting here with Carnesecca, Wysocki, Palermo, all the Italians all in one row. Is that a planned thing, or is that a little discrimination just putting us all together, Bob? By the way, who dressed you? Rodney Dangerfield? You want to see if somebody else besides himself didn't get any respect. A little tough. Thank you, Jim Beatty, for the fine and very kind comments that you made earlier. If you're thinking about a comeback in the American League, I'll be back and I'll take care of you, buddy. Just to clarify for the record, Bud Selig and I aren't really tight. Dick, don't get the idea that I'm coming back and you guys are automatically going to be in the World Series when I do get back. You can tell your father-in-law that, Laurel. All right, that's from me personally. As Jerry was saying, you should be very proud of the things that you do here, what you've accomplished here, the young people who represent you here, because they are our future. One thing I don't understand, you got a student with a 4.59 out of a possible 4.0, and now I've got the University of Wisconsin athletic director telling me exactly how that can be accomplished. Easy, Pat. I don't work for the NCAA. I know I live in Overland Park, but I'm not working undercover for them yet. Chopper, you got to drop the name Chopper, though. Anybody walking around with a 4.59 can't be called Chopper. That's got a G-O. Been to quite a few banquets. As you may well guess, all you have to do is just get shot once and everybody invites you to their banquet. I had attended an affair in Nova Scotia and sitting at the head table with quite a few distinguished guests, as we have up here this evening. And waiter comes by, and as they're serving dinner, and we're having roast beef this evening, and there's a baked potato sitting aside of it, and I asked the butler, may I please have another pat of butter? He said, no, sir, I'm sorry, you can only have one pat. I said, well, wait, hold it. I said, you don't understand. I said, my name is Steve Palermo. Worked the playoffs in 80, 81, 82, World Series in 83, All-Star game in 86, 89, worked the playoffs. Said, I'm going to be sitting at the head table, I'm going to be the #1 speaker tonight, like another pat of butter. He said, no, sir, I'm sorry. He said, maybe you don't know who I am. I looked at him, and he took me back for a second. I said, no, I'm sorry, I don't. He said, I'm the guy in charge of the butter. Now, that's a psychological ploy we have as umpires. We try to pull that on people. And dealing with players, we do that too. We wear an awful lot of different hats, and you have to, in the occupation that we have, you have to be an attorney where you choose your words very, very carefully when explaining a play. You have to be somewhat of a law officer out there to keep control, law and order. You have to be somewhat of a psychologist. You have to know what makes these people tick and how you can handle them and to disarm them, so they don't get too carried away and end up getting themselves thrown out of a ball game. One thing I hate to do is to write ejection reports for players. I mean, that's just a long, tedious thing that takes up time when you're on a flight to get a guy fined $100 or $200 when he's making $3.1 million. It really doesn't correlate there. It's not, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Had a situation once, and Jim knows the person that I'm talking about very, very well, is the president manager of the Seattle Mariners, Mr. Lou Piniella. Lou, at times, and I noticed in the paper today, the local paper here, that they quoted Dutch Rennert as saying that Lou wasn't one of his top 300 or 400 favorite managers. And I had an occasion to deal with Lou at one time where I could use a little psychological ploy on him and try to disarm him. Here's a very volatile person playing for the New York Yankees, which in a nutshell says it all. And he's in the batter's box one day, and I call a strike on him, and he steps out of the batter's box. He says, damn it, Stevie, where the hell was that pitch at? And I said, wait a minute, Lou, hold it. Here you are, you're very well read, you're very well bred. I said, you're intelligent, you're well-spoken, you're articulate, you live here, work here in New York City, you attend an awful lot of functions, you address people all the time, you're speaking with people. You realize that you just ended that sentence with a preposition? It took him back for a second. Got back in the batter's box, ready to play ball again. I point to the pitcher, signal him to throw the ball. Lou gets in. All of a sudden, it hits him a little bit. Now he wants to get, unfortunately, I know the umpire does get the last word, but Lou thought he was and superseded an umpire where he would get the last word. He steps back out of the batter's box. He says, wait a minute, Stevie, let me put this one on you. He said, where was that pitch at, asshole? Funny, isn't it? Now you got the catcher sitting in front of you, and he turns around. Well, what are you going to do? Let's play ball. Got a guy like Billy Martin, late and great manager of baseball, most notably associated with the New York Yankees. He tried some psychology on me one day. Had to play at first base with Kenny Griffey when Kenny was playing with the New York Yankees. And this might have been the only play that I kicked. I did miss this play at first base, and I called Kenny out. And Billy came charging out of the dugout, and he put his finger in my face. Of course, this is on TV all around New York and half the country. It's the game of the week. And he said, I'm going to tell you one thing. He said, you're the second best umpire we got in this league. And with that, he turns around and he gets back in the dugout. And everybody in New York is ready, they're starting to unscrew the seats and take them out of the cement and ready to throw them on the field because they see Billy coming out of the dugout to argue with me. And as quick as he comes out, he turns around and he goes back. I went, not bad. This is my third or fourth year in the big leagues, and I've disarmed Billy Martin. I got him believing that I'm the second best umpire in this league. I said, that's pretty good. And we got 28 guys in the league, and I've only been there for 4 years, so I'm starting to make my mark and setting my reputation. Well, it was eating at me, though, because I wanted to patent myself, because I had a great deal of respect for Billy, and I know that's hard for you to understand. You say, why? Because he kicked dirt on umpires, and he was abusive toward umpires. Billy Martin knew the game. He knew the game inside out. He was an excellent manager. He was a great motivator. He was tough. But if you worked hard, he would leave you alone. And it ate at me, and I said, well, I got to talk to him. I got to find out who I can pick the number one guy's head and see if I can get beyond him. Maybe Billy will consider me to be number one. So I called him out of the dugout about the 7th inning. I said, Billy, I said, it's been eating at me for about 3 or 4 innings over here. I said, you consider me to be second best. Who is the number one guy? Because I want to pattern myself after him. I want to be at least equal to him, so in your eyes, I'll be considered to be a real good umpire. He said, don't worry about it. The other 27 are tied for first place. I know you think it's funny, but you had to be there. It's not that funny when it happens. It really isn't. Yeah, tonight, about 6 or 7 times, Earl Weaver's name was brought up. Now, why does anybody want to bring up that little militant midget's name? Most miserable human being I've ever dealt with. And I'm coming back, but he's not, so I can say that I'm not worried about the confrontations with that little monster anymore. Had a player that played for him by the name of Pat Kelly, a very religious, very Christian person. And Weaver was in the dugout all the time and threatening ball players and cussing at them, and he felt that this was a good way to motivate him. And of course, Weaver's philosophy about baseball was get 2 guys on and then get the 3-run homer, and that was his philosophy on how to win ball games. Well, Pat Kelly was up this one time, and there's a man on first base, and to tie the score, they needed 3 runs. And Kelly was the second hitter up, and Weaver told him, go up there and be very selective because you get on base. Now we can get this guy to pop one out. We'll tie this game up, and that was Weaver's favorite play, that 3-run homer. So Pat Kelly gets up to hit, looks at a couple of pitches, got a count runs to 2-2, and now swings at a real bad pitch, but fouls it off, and Weaver's yelling, damn it, Pat, be selective, be selective. And there's Pat, very Christian-like, and he steps out, and he's not going to show too much emotion, and he's just telling Earl, calm down, take it easy, be a little bit more placid. Well, the count goes to 3-2, and now Kelly swings at a real bad pitch in the dirt and strikes out. He walks back to the dugout, and Pat Kelly knows that he's going to get chewed out by Weaver, and Weaver looks at him and he says, damn you, Pat. He said, well, how can you swing at a pitch like that? He said, Earl, you got to calm down. You got to think about taking a walk with the Lord. Weaver looked at him and he said, you ought to think about taking ball 4 and taking a walk so that we can try and win this ball game. His comment was later, He said, you want me to walk with the Lord? I'd appreciate it if you take a walk with the bases loaded. I thank you very much. I think it's an oxymoron or a contradiction in terms, or it's a conflicting statement to have an umpire come up here and receive a nice guy award. Doesn't make too much sense. But after talking with Danny Ornstein and him convincing me, believe me, they won't yell at you, they won't boo you, I decided that I would acquiesce and say yes to appearing here, not really realizing that this probably is the greatest function throughout the Midwest, if not the country, as far as banquets go. I want to thank you all from both myself and my wife, Debbie, for treating us royally ever since we have gotten into town. We've been treated first class. This is a first-class town, a first-class operation. I know what the fans of Milwaukee and Wisconsin are like. I've dealt with that for 15 years, 16 years in the big leagues. This will be 17 this year. I'm not a former American League umpire. I'm an inactive American League umpire at the present. We'll be... Thank you. It's blessed. Holy water. That's what you do. You drink out of a man's glass, that coach at a Catholic university. I guess there's only one person in this room who hasn't been introduced tonight, and I'd like to take that opportunity now. As Bette Midler says in her song, she's the person, or she's the wind beneath my wings. And today I was being interviewed by one of the print media, and he asked me to describe my wife, and I said, and I'd said this over the air too in a radio show that I did, a live radio show. He kind of caught me off guard. I said I would compare it to Secretariat. And he said, whoa, 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 we're on the air, Steve. We're on the air. I said, you don't understand. All great horses, when they go after the Triple Crown, they compare that horse to the greatest of all time. The greatest of all time being Secretariat. That's what I consider my wife to be. She's a champion. She's a pure thoroughbred champion. When I was shot down, 4.5 hours, and this happened in the middle of the evening or early, very early in the morning, as is an umpire's lot, we don't have our 7 o'clock dinner, or your 7 o'clock dinner is our 11:30 dinner. That's the lifestyle that we lead. She was informed that I got shot at 3:43, or was it 3:47, Debbie? I don't know, you've got that one pretty well down. That I had been shot. 5 hours later, she was standing at my side as they wheeled me out of surgery. She has been by my side ever since. We were married 5 months previous to the accident, or the shooting. For better, for worse, for richer, for poorer. But nobody ever said it was going to be this bad. But she stood right there. I would like to introduce you to my very lovely wife, Debbie. If I don't do that, I get hollered at later. And I usually say that, and everybody chuckles, and then I get up in a room, and then I get my ass chewed out later. It is an honor. I don't want to date Jerry. I don't want to date myself. I watched Jerry Kramer play. I watched $25,000 block. And I was a Green Bay Packer fan because of Vince Lombardi and the way that he commanded respect. And everybody talks about Coach Lombardi. It's never Vince or Lombardi. It's Coach Lombardi. And the great respect and the reverence that he had. commanded, not demanded. And here, in this room, you all command respect. Each and every one of us commands respect. People ask me, would I do the same thing over again? Well, I liken it to any and everybody in this room, and I would put the challenge out to anybody in this room. And I know what the answer would be. If you were confronted with the same situation that we were confronted with on July 7th of 1991, there is no doubt in my mind that if somebody came running through this door and said that there were two ladies being held up, that you wouldn't up and off of this table and out the door that you would go. There's no doubt in my mind, because you're all good, solid people, very strong citizens. That's what makes this function so great. That's what makes this town so great. Yeah, I know, that's what makes Milwaukee so great, right? And Wisconsin so great. You are tremendous people. You owe yourself a hand as well as giving us a very nice and rousing applause all night long. I want to end and leave you with something, and Jerry left you with something, and it was the legacy of Coach Lombardi and what it meant to him. So I was just sitting in the hospital bed in Dallas, Texas, going through rehabilitation. Somebody, and we've had thousands and thousands upon thousands of letters and cards, phone calls, flowers, gifts. It's just been majestically overwhelming how people have treated us throughout this entire ordeal. It gets to the point of being embarrassing. You get kind of embarrassed. In Dallas, when I was able to leave the Rehabilitation Institute to go out into the quote-unquote real world for a weekday, went to a restaurant with my wife, and everybody stood there and gave us a standing ovation. It's very embarrassing when everybody stands up and gives you a standing ovation when you go in for dinner. And we didn't even call ahead for reservations. This letter that I received came from a person that told me not to give it up. To keep on plugging away, that they would one day soon see me back out on the baseball field again. This letter has stuck with me. When I attend banquets like this, I read this letter to people. I draw on it as a source of inspiration. It is very motivational for me to read it from time to time to remind me as to what my quest is, and that is to get back on a baseball field in the major leagues. And I will do that. Just like this person in these corresponding years, it chronicles his life. And at the bottom, it has a caption. I'd like to read the chronicalization of his life and what he went through in order to where he got. This person had failed in business in the year of 31. In 32, he was defeated for the legislature. In 33, he again failed in business. In 34, he was elected to the legislature. In 35, his sweetheart died. In 36, he had a nervous breakdown. In 38, he was defeated for the speaker. In 40, he was defeated for elector. In 46, he was elected to Congress. In 50, his son died. In 55, he was defeated for the Senate. In 56, he was defeated for the vice presidency. He was defeated for the Senate in 58. And he was elected president of the United States in 1860. Abraham Lincoln. And the caption, never admit defeat. And I will leave you with that, and I thank you very, very much for this wonderful honor and for having me here this evening. Thank you.
Please subscribe to this channel, give this video a thumbs up, and hit that notification bell so you get notified when we post another great episode or interview. Download the podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for your support.